Hey there, it's Brooks here from DocumentSnap.com, and today we're going to be talking about how to export from Evernote. So when you're exporting from Evernote, there's basically two options. The first is to export using HTML. So if you've used a web page, you're familiar with HTML. It basically exports your notes as if each one was an individual web page and keeps the images and the PDFs intact. The second one is a proprietary Evernote format called ENEX. And basically what that does is it exports everything into one big file that can then be exported and then imported into some other application, assuming you have one that will read it. And now let's go through and take a look at how all this works. So you can see right now I'm in Evernote, and I'm in one of my notebooks, which is a notebook of notes about Portland, Oregon, since my wife and I like going there a fair amount. So I've got a bunch of different notes here. I've got this image note of a kind of beer I particularly liked, a note about some store that my wife wants to check out, an image of places to eat in Portland, food carts and the like, just a text note, and finally a PDF, a map of some smart park location. Just to make things simple, let's just try exporting this one formatted note that has some HTML and some images inside it. So what I'm going to do is, there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but for starters I'm going to go File and Export Notes to Archive. And as I mentioned before, there's two options. There's HTML and there's Evernote XML. So I'm going to leave it as HTML, and we'll see what we get. And I'm going to give it a note as WDS just so I can find it later, and I'm going to hit Save. And it says it's exported one note, so let's check it out. So here I am in Finder, and by the way, if you're using Microsoft Windows, all this is basically the same. You're just using Windows Evernote instead of Mac Evernote, but it's the same. And if you remember, I named my note WDS, so you can see Evernote has created a folder here called WDS. And when I go into it, I've got an HTML file with the name of the note and a resources folder. So let's take a look at the file. So I'm going to open this up in my web browser. And there you go. We're looking at the note as exported by Evernote. And now if I bring my Evernote window open here, and I open up the note, I get that out of the way, you can see they're pretty close. On the right is the Evernote note, and on the left is the HTML export. So it's a nearly perfect export, or pretty much a perfect export from Evernote. Now, in case you're wondering what's inside this resources folder, that's where it's putting the JPEG. So those images that you see here in the note, like that, Evernote actually saves them here in the resources folder. So now I'm back in Evernote, and what happens so obviously we could export notes one at a time or a few at a time, but that can be kind of a pain. So what if we want to export a whole notebook at once? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my Portland Notes notebook. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go Export Notes from Portland Notes. And again, I choose the location, so I'm just going to call it Portland Notes. And again, I have the choice of format, HTML or Evernote XML, ENEX. So if I choose HTML, what it's going to do is it's going to export a single HTML file for each note. But what I'm going to choose this time is the ENEX file. So that's a good way to back up your Evernote database. And it says it allows you to import the notes either into an Evernote client or a third-party application. So if there's something that supports ENEX files, or if you just want to back it up, that's good too. So I'm going to choose ENEX and I'm going to hit Save. And so it's going through and it's exporting all 15 notes. And there we go, exported 15 notes. And now let's take a look at what we get. So here we are back in my export directory, and as you can see, we only have one file here. It's called Portland Notes, which is what I named it, .enex. If I look at what Mac is suggesting I open it with, it says open with Evernote, so I could do that, but let's just see what it's actually in it. So I'm just going to open this up with my with a text editor. So I'm going to drag it down, and I'll maximize this. And here you are. So you don't need to worry about what this looks like, but basically it's a giant text file formatted in XML. So a programmer could go through this and pull out the data that they need, or if there's another support application that supports the ENEX file, it can use that. So those are two main ways to export from Evernote. There's one more blog post that I did that I'm just going to show you quickly. So here's a blog post that I did recently, and it's about how to export your Evernote notes to RTF. Now, unfortunately, this is only for Mac users, but if you're interested, check out this blog post that I did, and it points you to how to take your Evernote notes and use an Apple script to export them to a RTF file, which can be opened up in pretty much any word processor. And that's how to export from Evernote. Thanks.